Hello and welcome to the Mal&Johnny Show. On today's programme, we're talking about unusual gigs. Now, I'm sure you've got a lot of unusual gigs that you can remember. The reason for this is on Thursday, I'm off to London, right? The whole story happened just before Christmas. I was doing a radio programme and I interviewed Father Faddy from a place called, well, I used to call it Ramallah, but he informed me that it's called Ramallah. Do you know?
So far, is he Irish, but with that kind of name?
No, he's. I think he's Palestinian.
Israeli?
I think he's Palestinian. Yes, I think so.
Oh, Palestinian, right?
Yeah,
okay.
and so Ramallah means Ram, mountain, Allah, God, mountain of God.
Right, okay.
So he's an Anglican minister. I think it's St Andrews, the rector of St Andrews in Ramallah. We got talking quite a lot, and I was doing the radio program from the Garden Shed, and I said, I come from a place you've probably never heard of called Swansea, and he said, Swansea. He said there were two ladies, and I've written their names down here. Kit Morgan and Gladys Thomas from Swansea opened a new home and school for girls in Ramallah. In Ramallah.
Never.
So there's a lovely feeling
a link,
yeah, and a lot of love for Wales and for Swansea because of Kit Morgan and Gladys Thomas. So anyway, so that was the connection at the end of it. It was a really interesting story because the Israeli Defence Force had been into his church and gone through all their files, and it's a difficult place to run a church. And I just sort of said, if I can ever do anything, you always say that, don't you? Oh, give me a call. Anyway, they've got a concert on Thursday at it's the Westminster Cathedral, not the Abbey. Do you know what the difference is?
No, not really. Oh, the Abbey with the monks.
Yeah. Well, Cathedral is the Catholic Abbey in Westminster, and it's with a good old bunch of boys, London Male Voice Choir, and then the priests. Do you know who the priests are?
No.
Three boys. Well, I say they're boys. They're three Irish priests. They met in sort of like a boarding school together, and they've been singing ever since. And they've sold millions of records.
Oh wow!
So and
like the three tenors.
The three tenors, yeah, the priests. So it's a big do at the Westminster Cathedral. The only thing I keep on thinking is maybe they got it wrong. Maybe they were trying to get the Pope to look after the concert and just
probably.
Pope.
He's tied up at the moment.
He's a bit busy. So he sent me along instead. So it's going to be. I'm looking forward to it.
So what are you going to do? You're going to be comparing it and
just
doing
comparing. Yes, very good evening.
Couple of songs.
Yeah, no, just talking. Just talking.
Oh, just talking.
Yeah.
So there we are.
It'll be very interesting. To come up with a couple of gags.
Well, funny you should say about a cathedral. I did a funny gig once. No, a few years back, not too long ago. Wayne Waller rang me up. Wayne Waller used to be the MD for a lot of stuff in the BBC, and also used to do the new Theatre Cardiff for the Pantos and stuff.
Yes.
He said, "I've got this tape, John." He said, "I'm doing the Brecon Festival, Jazz Festival.
Oh wow!
And I've got this recording of Duke Ellington."
Yeah.
And he said, in the middle bit, there's somebody do tap dances. Would I do that for him? I said, yeah, I will. So I had to work this tap routine out, and he had this big orchestra, and it was in the cathedral in Brecon. So I danced in the cathedral, so we got something in common.
My goodness. Wayne Wall, I love that. Do you remember they used to do that programme, It'll Be All Right on the Night?
Oh, yeah, he looks like he's watched it.
He does this. He's conducting, I think it's Selena Duncan's programme on ITV, on HTV Wales, and he goes like this.
Yeah. That's right, yeah. Do you know what his middle name is?
No.
Buffett.
Buffett?
Wayne Buffett Wallow. Is his I've known him for years.
Wow.
I did quite a few pantos with him when he was in Cardiff,
Yeah.
And of course he had all the jobs tied up. He had the MD's job at the Beeb for years before Benny Litchfield came in, so he did a lot of that. And so that was one gig which was a bit different. But another one came to mind was when I went to the Philippines.
Right.
I'd been doing a tour of Australia, doing the nightclubs in Australia. And the agent said to me, well, you're finishing this week, John. He said, do you want to earn some more money on the way home? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, there's an American base in the Philippines, he said. He said, and they'll pay you in dollars, cash, Yeah, I said, well, I may as well. It's halfway home, innit? Yeah. So I thought, no, they're going to fix me up with everything. I had to go via Hong Kong. So I go via Hong Kong, and I got nowhere to stay. Because I thought, where do I stay in Hong Kong, Yeah. And there were two Japanese dancers on the plane, girl ballet dancers, and they got talking to me. He said, where are you staying, John? I said, oh, I don't know. I said, I thought he was going to fix something, and he didn't. Come and stay with us. So I went to this place called Chonky Mansions.
Right.
It looked like one of those office, like a block with no windows. It was like hundreds of people living in this warren.
Yeah.
And I stayed in this place with these girls. I had a different room, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
And the little Chinese woman came in the morning, gave me breakfast.
Wow.
And it was like, it was pence,
Yeah.
So then I had to fly into the Philippines.
Right.
So I go into the Philippines and I got to meet a bloke called Ching Imperial. Now, he was the agent. Now, in those days, I'm talking back in the 70s, it was dangerous there. Everybody had guns and that,
Yeah.
So he said, when you get to the airport, don't move until they meet you. So this big Cadillac turns up, black windows, and they, bzzzt, hello, John, get in. Bzzzt, right, so get in. This bloke, Ching Imperial, takes me to some hotel in Manila. He says, we can't go up to the Subic Bay. That's where all Americans were. He said, because there's been a typhoon, it's washed the road out, so you'll have to a couple of days and I'll take you up. Eventually, long story short, take me to Subic Bay. Mm-hmm. And I've got a driver called Gus. Right? So Gus doesn't speak much English. So he said, I take you to a flat. There was a flat for the artists. But there's a girl there in the flat because she was the artist before me and she hadn't left yet. So I had nowhere to stay. And she was, remember Dickie Valentine?
Yes.
Dickie Valentine's wife. She was a singer, his second wife.
Right.
Anyway, so I said, well, when am I going to stay? So I find somewhere for you to stay. So he finds me this place. The room had no window in it. And it was like hot and humid, and sticky. And there's no one. So I'm staying in this place. So I go downstairs and said, you've got a fan. It's blinking, boiling in here. So I got a fan, left the light on and slept in this place. When I woke up, I was in a whorehouse. They put me in this blinking whorehouse for the night. So I went and did the show there with all these Yanks.
Yeah.
And that was the good bit, because it was a good crack. They loved all the rock and roll and all that,
Yeah.
So that was a funny gig.
Wow.
I'm thinking about any others I've done.
I'm going to tell you about.
What about you?
Well, the back of a tank transporter in Germany.
That's all right.
It's one of those events when you go to the air bases. And
was that American or English bases?
American. They were enormous. These guys kept asking, are they on our side? Because they were just enormous. And where's the stage? It's a tank transporter. You set up your gear on there and off you go. Yeah.
I did all those bases. It was amazing. I mean, one of them was called the Snake Pit. That was a nickname. Because there used to be fights going on between the blacks and the whites. They were segregated. They'd be throwing Coke cans at each other. It's nicknamed the Snake Pit in Mainz. So I had a couple of funny gigs.
Yeah. What about now the Young Farmers Village at Bilthwells, Llanelwy?
Right.
Sodom and Gomorrah in Wellies. We arrived there. It was obviously Young Farmers had set it up, and we'd done a lot of gigs, a lot of different gigs up the the different clubs in the valley. So we were used to it. But the first thing I said to the organizer was, "Good crowd." And they said, "Well, they bottled yesterday's band off." Got up on stage, and it's like 3,000, and of course most of these young farmers don't really mix, do they? Because they're living on a farm somewhere. So
that's right,
suddenly they all get together for a week, and it was
they go
climbing up the posts. They were throwing, not at us. They were throwing bottles at each other, and in fact, it went down so well we did it for 3 years in a row.
You must have been good. They asked you back the following year. I did a show in a barn once in Cowbridge. I think that was a barn dance, but that's the nearest I got to that.
Yeah.
But I did a gig once in where was it? Liverpool.
Right.
I was doing a week in a club in Birkenhead called the Hay Club in Morton, and then they said, "Do you want to earn some more money on a Sunday? There's a gig you can do in the afternoon." I said, "Aye, all right, why not?" It was in this club called the Temple, and it was on the dock in Liverpool. But what I didn't realise, it was all men in there for a start. So I get to the door. The guy says, "You blue comic?" I said, "No." He said, "Oh God, I like your blue hair." I said, "So what am I going to do?" I said, "Where's the band?" He said, "We haven't got a band, we got a group." I said, "Can they read music?" He said, "They can't read the bloody echo." I thought I'm in trouble now. So I said to the band, I said, "You know Delilah?" "Yeah, we know Delilah." "Right, I'll use that to get off." I said, and I picked some pop song of the day they knew. So I opened with that, and I'm just steaming into all these jokes that you tell your mates. You're dead, normally not two women on the stage, right? And I'm doing okay.
Yeah. And
there's only one woman in the whole place, and she was the waitress, and she comes staggering up. She was drunk, and she had a plate full of drinks, and she got stremps all over her T-shirt. And he said, "He got everything. He can have me after." So the manager jumped on the stage, and he grabbed the mic. He said, Get off! Can't you see he's doing his turn, you old cow? Well, it was so bad. I was hysterical laughing in the end. So he said, "You coming back tonight?" I said, "You must be joking." He said, "That's the trouble with you Welsh. No, not Welsh. That's the trouble with you woolly backs. You got no guts." What a gig that was!
Gigs I wish I'd done. Where I was, supporting Art Garfunkel all around Europe, and they book these gigs. Half of them, most of them were in theatres. In fact, we did a tour of the amphitheatres in East Germany that Hitler had built for his rallies, and then the Soviets had taken over and done it for their rallies, and then now that they're like festival concerts, and they're beautiful places. But we did this gig in Campione. I know you've done casinos before, but Art Garfunkel in the casino was a bit odd, and in fact I didn't do my show with that because I just used to go up with an acoustic guitar,
right?
So but it was one of those things. It's in Italy, but it's out through. You have to go through. It's in Switzerland. You have to go through Italy to get there. So we landed in Milan, stayed near Lake Como on the lake there, but then you had to go through a different part of the area which was controlled by the mafia, and you could only go there if you paid the right people. But they also went to Casablanca, and I didn't get the chance to go to Casablanca. And when they all came back from Casablanca, I think I'd had 3 days to get to Prague or something like that. They went to Casablanca by train. I went by train, and as exactly the tour manager had to be there at customs, getting the gear and going.
Yeah,
that's for you. That's for you. That's
so how long were you on that tour then?
Oh, it seemed like a lifetime. It was about 4 or 5 months off and on.
Did you make much out of it?
Oh, I made nothing. They didn't pay me.
They didn't pay you?
No, well, this thing, a lot of people don't realise when you do your gig, when you're supporting a major act, quite often they want you to buy on. They want you to pay the act so you can sing for the audience.
Yeah.
And then I think nobody decided to do that, so I got asked to go and do it, but for nothing. So pay my own way. So I was travelling around with a bag of CDs and a guitar and a change of clothes, and it was interesting because obviously I'd never done that before, but quite a lot of the old American hands had been doing it. In fact, the guy who booked us into Prague, I'd asked our tour manager if he could take my clothes for me to save me, because I was going by train from Lake Como to Prague. Anyway, it's a long journey, and I went out to sleep, and it was a long story. Anyway, I got there, and he'd forgotten to pick it up from the airport. So I went to the airport with the promoter, and the promoter had been doing it through all the Soviet time. So he brought people like Ella Fitzgerald across, and Louis Armstrong to Prague across the Iron Curtain. And so I had a great afternoon with him because he took me and he knew everybody, and he was explaining to me how all the different embassies were all linked together by tunnels and stuff like that. Anyway, got to the gig, did my gig, and I was only making money by selling the CDs that I carried around with me.
Oh, there we are.
Yeah, except I came off, and then the police were there, undercover police were there. He said, "Where's your paperwork?" I said,
"Oh no."
Well, luckily Holly, who was an American T-shirt seller, had done it loads and loads of times. She said, "Don't worry about it," and he went down in the morning and made it right.
Oh, there we are. Good for him.
It cost me a bit, but there we are. So they're interesting. You never know where you're gonna.
Oh, you get these interesting gigs. I mean, when I did Germany, I also did Italy as well. But I think they sent me by train then.
Right.
Because you're green when you're young. You go on a train all the way to Italy from being Germany, through Switzerland. Yeah. And the blinking the dining car were on strike, so I had no food. I was starving. Yeah. By the time I got to Italy.
The other thing is, though, when you're given these gigs when you're younger, you sink or swim, don't you? That's the thing.
That's right. Yeah,
you have to learn.
That's when you don't know what you're getting into, do you? No. So you just go, because anything you're in showbiz, you're going to do it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, I remember doing when I went to London after sort of like being in a record deal and then being out of a record deal and all that, and just trying to survive. I started doing this nightclub down called the Click in Chelsea, and it was just. I was going to do my own songs. Well, that's not going to work, is it? You got to do Elton John. You got to be Billy Joel.
You got to do what they do.
All of a sudden, I used to do a wine bar in Edgware, and the thing is, you can get good at it, can't you? You know, once you done it a couple of times, you know, it's like when we did the clubs with the band as well. You realise what you need to do, and
and let's face it, if you've done all the working men's clubs in those days, you had to survive. But they were either a great audience or they were difficult. And I always used to think once I won over a difficult audience, that was more of a thrill in a way than going there with it all shouting a race straight away. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It gives you a bit of I won tonight. You know what I mean? It's like me and them.
I always
remember, there was a comedian that I knew, right? And he went to Gurness Club. Gurness Club is hard, okay?
Hard club. Yeah.
And he walked on the stage and he said, well, my agent sent me here. I haven't come on my own free will. He said, you don't frighten me. That's how he started. And he did okay after that.
He did okay. You got to face him down. Face him down. Yeah. Come on. It's like Bonnie. I think it was Bonnie. It was at Reading Festival. They started bottling her. They bottled a lot of people off on that. And she turned around and started bottling them back. And then she won. She won.
Gain no win.
Yeah. One last one. Then I remember because on that tour of Southeast Asia with Max Boyce, and you know we played like the China Fleet Club. It was a club, you know, but Max had done a lot of clubs. But they knew who Max was, and we did a lot of theatres in Australia, and we did hotels in Hong Kong as well. But we went to Korea, and it was an expat club, but they weren't British; they were all American. And there was one lad there from Trathloin. I think I said this before. Trathloin in Swansea. He's the only one who was there that knew who Max was. But those years of experience of doing clubs and theatres and places where you know it's hard. He was brilliant. Yeah. He was absolutely brilliant.
Because I suppose if like when they knew him, in like Australia, big rugby place, or New Zealand, any of those places, they're going to be there ready for him, aren't they?
Yeah,
you know, like going somewhere where nobody knows who you are. You got to stand by your talent.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, you know, as soon as he came on with the leak, in fact, this will be my last story now, and I won't bore you anymore. But because I was the new boy on the tour. And everybody had to take turns in carrying the 7-foot fiberglass leak.
Did you get paid for this tour? Or is this
I got paid for this tour. We had what's it called? The Southeast Asian shopping tour, Max Boyce shopping tour, because we had a great time. And then so if you go to Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand, Max Boyce, big 7-foot leak, it's Max. Yeah. If you do that in Korea, absolutely nobody. And I got stopped, and I'm not telling a lie. The guy wanted to know why I was carrying a great big spring onion. And the thing is, all the band go through, they're all looking back, knowing that
there with the leak.
You're going through trouble, and all they do is laugh. All they do is laugh.
I tell you what, the worst club I ever did was when, what was it called? The Flamingo in Preston. Okay?
Flamingo.
So whenever I used to tell, any of the Liverpool comics, like Tom O'Connor, I said, where are you going? The Flamingo. You go, not the Flamingo. so this club was packed to the girl, it was just jammed, right? Yeah. There was an organist in the middle of this room.
Right.
And we're just surrounded by all the audience. And no drums, just this organist. Right. No time for rehearsal. Just count him in and hope he can read the music. And he could. So I started to my first number, and it's finished, and not one person clapped. Not one at all. They're all talking. It's a bit funny, isn't it? So I said, what's going on? He said, keep going. He said, they're always like this. He said, the girl last week ran off crying. I said, I'm running off crying. I'm going to stay here and do it again. So next number, nothing. Then all of a sudden, this girl who was probably a hooker or something looks round and she went, it's Engelbert. I just started to laugh because it was so bad. Years later, I'm speaking to Tom O'Connor. He said, I was there once. He said his bloke, the woman who ran it used to wear a fur coat and slippers, right? She used to run this, it was her place. And some bloke had hidden in the loft, and he was waiting till everybody went and come and rob the place, right? And he fell through the ceiling, this bloke, and landed in the bar. And she said the immortal words, lock the doors, don't let anybody out. Now, I don't know if he embellished upon that, but probably knowing him, he would. Oh, some of the clubs, I don't know. Well, you know what they're like. You've done them.
Yeah, we have done. Sadly, I think that's...
We've survived, mate. We survived.
We learned our trade, and sadly, I don't think they're there anymore.
No, they're not. We had good fun, though. We had some fun. And in amongst this, we did great gigs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'd work with great big bands, which is fabulous. You don't get big bands anymore, do you? But I used to work with big orchestras. Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah.
Well, I'm with the London Male Voice Choir, London Welsh Male Voice Choir, and the priests.
What do they call them? The priests.
And the priests.
And when is this going to go out?
This is Thursday night. If you're in London, Thursday night, 7:30. Actually, I think they've sold about 750 tickets, so I think they're all... They're very happy. So try not to let anybody down. Okay, well, love to speak to you. And
you.
If you've got nothing on next Tuesday, don't come in front of the camera.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, I forgot to get my wife a card, and she got me one. Clang. So I've been out now and bought her some flowers because she's rehearsing at the moment.
Exactly.
So when she comes home, there'll be some
flowers. As long as she doesn't listen to this, you can get away with it. Say, you already planned. Good stuff. All right. So it's a goodbye from lover boy Johnny Tudor, who forgot his Valentine's card.
And goodbye from you with the priest. Ta-da.